Hello, and welcome to the Argyle HR Leadership Forum, Workplace Compliance Tools, Processes, and Technology. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booth from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Also, be sure to subscribe to Argyle on YouTube for exclusive access to all our past events. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Stacy Lewis, CEO, founder, and chief disruptor of HR Interrupted and former CHRO. We're super excited to have Stacy and our panelists for a panel discussion titled Navigating Compliance in AI-Driven HR Operations. Welcome, Stacy. Over to you.
Wow, thank you, Nick. Good morning to all of our participants. We're excited to have a healthy conversation with you today regarding, as Nick said, navigating compliance in an AI-driven HR operations. Let me jump right in and have my amazing panel introduce themselves to you so we can jump into the conversation. Monica, why don't you take it away from us this morning and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Stacy. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Panetta. I am the Chief People Officer at Pareto Health, which is a company located in Philadelphia. Go Birds. I've been with the company for about 18 months. We are in the healthcare space, insurance space, and we're doing something truly disruptive in that space. So we're always looking at latest and greatest technology and trying to be one step ahead. And when I'm not there, I live outside of Philly. I have 2 kids and do a lot of volunteer work. So happy to be here today.
Thank you, Monica. Naga, jump right in.
Thank you, Stacy. Hello, everyone. My name is Naga Krishna Kadiala. I'm Associate VP at University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. We are a major academic healthcare center, and we are the largest ambulatory care in Southeast Texas. I've been with the university for 13 years, and in my role, I'm responsible to integrate technology, and more specifically AI, for the past 2 years into HR operations.
Thank you. So let's start our conversation. And again, AI is one of those topics that can never get enough conversation around it. So Naga, I want to start with you. How are you in your organization redesigning core HR operations like hiring, performance management, employee relations to stay compliant as AI becomes more and more embedded in our workflow and the things that we do?
So we're doing multiple things, Stacey. First and foremost, we operate in a highly regulated industry at the intersection of both healthcare governance models and also higher education, and on top of it, people law, employee labor laws. So given the industry itself is highly regulated, we already have established governance teams and processes around compliance. However, we want to balance that with innovation, right? That's a challenge in an industry like this. So one thing we made it clear is setting the tone is AI, at least at this point of time, is an augmentation and your teammate rather than a replacement. And also AI in critical process like hiring process, AI is not going to decide. It's a human who's going to decide, whether it be recruiter or a hiring manager, the whole hiring team. We made it clear that AI is not going to be placed in a position that it's going to screen out any applicant in the process. So we're taking a cautious approach in everything. We are at the same time, we are not delaying innovation. We are making sure we're normalizing AI so that people are more aware of AI technologies and how to use them. For example, we have access to Microsoft Copilot. The departments can subscribe to all of their employees, pay that extra cost, but normalizing that to use AI in their day-to-day, starting with summarizing emails, writing a better email, or taking meeting notes. But at the same time, making sure we're not forcing AI into the process. We want to meet where they are.
I think that was really profound when you're saying that it's not a replacement, it's an augmentation. And I think that's a good foundation. Monica, anything you wanted to jump in on that before I get to you?
Yeah, so I agree. It's an enabler, it's an enhancer. One thing that we've done, just to give some concrete examples, we use a tool called Bright Hire in our recruiting process. And Bright Hire actually not only helps with the augmentation piece, but also helps with identifying areas where we need to do extra training. So for example, the tool overlays interviews, right? So you're essentially recording interviews. You are able to then go back and ask the bot to find different parts of the interview, summarize it for you, and also be able to point out areas where we need to train and help our team be better. So not only for the efficiency of the recruiting process, but the ability to help people learn and develop too.
So, Monica, in light of that, will you share what operational safeguards or routines are effective or you put in place to account for accountability in decision making? So, do you understand my question?
Yep. So, I think first and foremost, partnering with my tech team on creating a policy and procedure framework. So just understanding the guardrails of understanding what we can use it for and how we should use it and when, but also which tools we can use, because there's so many different things out there now that you can install ChatGPT on your computer and all of a sudden you're teaching the ChatGPT about company information that you probably don't want out there, right? So we actually have a business subscription to ChatGPT, which is something we just use internally. And we're able to kind of ask it internal things that it learns from our internal process in a safe environment. So I'd say the first thing is just that policy procedure framework. Training and awareness is also a big thing. So training people on how to use it, when, and then also in what places can you have it, help you, and what places do you still need the human touch in? So that's been a big piece for us. Obviously, some audits and monitoring is really important too. So making sure you're checking in, trust but verify, I like to say, and understanding where you're using it so you can actually check in and say, all right, let's just use a human double check on some of this. And we also do feedback loops as well, so that we can continuously improve. So we like to ask our teams on, how is this working for you? How has it helped you, enhance your workday? What else can we do to help? What areas are the most tedious for you? Things like that. So I would say those are the big pieces.
Okay. Now, and as we talk, anytime you want to jump in, you want to add to that, because I have something for you. Did you want to add?
Yes. We are taking, like Monica, we are focusing on strategy as well. For example, when it comes to AI, we work with multiple vendors, right? So we are taking multi-pronged approach. We are building our own language models in-house for internal knowledge base. And we are also deploying embedded AI models, like Monica has explained, within the product itself. And the advantage of that is, and also having contracts in place that the data they're training the models is not leaving our tenants, and making sure they're not training their models on our data. That's very important for our industry in academic healthcare. We've been using AI in our internal audit and also research across the university, right? Research is big into AI, and it's critical to protect our IP. So it's very important to build those internal language models and making sure deploying the right AI model where it makes sense. So again, context is very important for these AI models. That's why it's better to normalize AI, to get awareness around AI for the people, so that they are not threatened or not appropriately using the right AI tool.
I'm so excited to be part of this conversation, Monica Naga, because I came into the human resources space when it was called personnel. So we, at times, we didn't even have a dot matrix computer. So to really talk about the transition to AI is just so exciting and fascinating to me. But Naga, with that, how do you assess whether the AI tool that you're using or the vendor that you've used is truly a fit, or I like your words, alignment with your HR operations, besides just its flashy capabilities? Like, how do you ensure that it aligns with your company's compliance needs and workforce culture? And I think that workforce culture is really key. How do you ensure that?
Yes. So it's glad you asked that question. Being in academic healthcare, and also we're a state agency. So being a state agency, there are some policies already in place, meaning you cannot just go and purchase any software you would like without going through request for proposal or request for information. And there's a lot more scrutiny into our processes, but those scrutinies are built in the policy procedure, the way Monica has explained. The policy is about, okay, you need to take all the steps necessary to conduct due diligence on these products. So we have threshold amounts saying if the product is going to cost you more than this, you have to take these steps. IT security is big, especially with AI. Security aspects are huge. Being the state of Texas, Texas have stringent requirements on Texas RAM certifications for these products, which helps us, because we will ask our vendors to say, hey, do you have this Texas RAM certification? If you don't, can you work on it and get it before we deploy the product? So we are mandated by state regulations and also internal policies. It's prior to AI moving to cloud systems. So we have evolved over the years. We used to have a lot more on-premise systems. Now we have a lot more cloud systems. So moving to cloud itself have helped us to be prepared for this AI disruption.
I love that. Monica, what about your agency? How do you make sure that the tool or the vendor you're using is in alignment with your workforce culture?
Yeah, I would say for us, it's really just making sure that, it's transparent. We're transparent in like where the data is stored, what they're using it for, what it's learning from, and then, the storage requirements as well. Like, how long are you storing the data? Purpose, things like that, because a lot of what we're trying to do, at least on my side with the HR team, is recruiting. So there's a lot of data that we collect, whether it be for filling out a scorecard or training and development, and just making sure that our partners aligned with like how they're using that. So I think that's also an important part. And then also how they're consenting people to allow to use it. Obviously, we don't just record every single interview. We have to get consent from the applicant and consent from the interviewer and all of that. So understanding that in that instance, how they're going about getting that consent. And when they don't get it, what happens, right?
Mm-hmm. So with that, and you're talking about consent, Monica, what are some of the biggest operational shifts that you're seeing your HR team making or must make to be responsible with managing employee data at scale, or especially with the rise of predictive analytics and AI assisted platforms? It's kind of a technical question, but what operation shifts do HR teams need to make to embrace this new technology?
I would say first and foremost, enhanced data governance and security, as well as just the ownership and access control. That's something that we do quite a lot. We have a framework for, who needs access to what and when and why, and really having that defined. Having the privacy compliance pieces weaved into training. That's been something that has, really been a big part of our new hire training and ongoing training. I would also say just data standardization, integrity monitoring, making sure that we've got, all of that under control. Teaching people about ethical use of AI and predictive analytics is another big one. So just having them understand, if they've never used it before, what are, like I said before, sort of the guardrails that we have in place as a company, but also more broadly, what should you use it for? What shouldn't you use it for? I would say the training piece is probably the biggest one. If we want our teams to understand how to use AI, we have to teach them how to use it and continue to teach them, because I feel like things change every hour, minute. There's something else coming out. Try this, make your doll box or whatever the case may be. But trying to teach them how to use that. And recently, we've had Canva kind of came behind the AI functionality. So now you can make, designs and slides and pictures with AI. So teaching our team how to use it, it's a huge piece because it's a time saver. It's also an enabler. But if they don't know how and it's at their fingertips, then they're not going to be able to use it. So I think the training is probably the biggest piece that comes out.
So I would like to add to that.
Yes, please do.
Actually, it's instead of making a change, I would say this is change that we've been asked to make a long time ago, because database decision making is big in healthcare. However, because of the fragmented nature and decentralized nature of industry, it's very difficult to capture data and collect data and provide better reports, right? So really, AI is really helping us in that space, and it's also helping us in the predictive nature. For example, we started leveraging, looking at the entire institution, who received a market adjustment in the last 5 years, or who received a promotion, how many people received, or who are receiving promotions. So although they are reactive, combining that with predictive metrics is very useful thing, and it's helping us even experimenting with some programs. So for example, even a rewards program, it might be, in a corporate world, it might be easier to deploy one type of reward program for the entire corporation. But when it comes to higher education, academic healthcare, it's a little more complex because you need to work with each group. So it's helping and coaching those leaders, and AI is really playing a big role and getting the data out, extracting that information, and providing meaningful stories.
I really like to hear what both of you are talking about, the training that is being offered to the HR teams. Again, I was sharing with you, when I grew up in HR, it was called personnel, and having conversations now with HR influencers, contributors, and thought leaders. And there is still, a little thought of like, gosh, we're moving so fast with innovation and technology, and I feel that I'm lagging behind. So to hear both of you who are experts in your space saying that we're really focusing on training, right, and the appropriate way to use it. From somebody on this, I just want to tell you, thank you for that. And that is key, the appropriate training, of not to be afraid of it, but to really embrace where we're going. So, now with that, how can HR leaders, kind of lead into what I'm saying, design internal processes to ensure cross-functional collaborations? So let's see, have HR, finance, legal, IT, compliance, when you're integrating new technologies into talent operations?
Sure, that's an excellent question as well. It's with the nature, again, it depends on the industry. Our organization structure at Academic Healthcare Center, you cannot thrive in this environment if the leader is not cross-functional, collaborative, and involving all the parties. For example, if let's taking a new hire process, it's touched by ID. Finance is involved in approving the funding for that position before you post and recruit for that individual. So you need to work with finance in designing that process. You need to work with our benefits and payroll, which might report into either HR or finance, depending on this organization. So involving them upfront in that design is what we are used to, because otherwise we can't even deploy something without their involvement. So it's sometimes we may not like to work with them, but you're forced to work with them. But it becomes it's normalized within our industry, at least in our academic healthcare setting. HR, we don't do things in a silo, but it takes a little longer time than other places where the entire control is in one place. The segregation of duties is big, and because of the segregation of duties, to deploy practices or processes takes much longer. However, at the end, everyone wins because you're taking all the perspectives into place before you deploy that solution.
I like that. I have a follow up with Monica. Go ahead, because I have a follow up on that. Monica, you want to go on that?
Yeah, no, I would say I totally agree with the collaboration, cross-functional partnership for sure. One other thing that we also find, so we haven't really built our own, let's just say like automated bots or anything like that. We're just sort of tipping the iceberg at some of this with some of our more high manual work, specifically, like I mentioned, around recruiting and some like general process things. But a lot of our bots are embedded into our tools. So for example, our Bright Hire tool has a bot, and you can ask it, find me an example of this candidate talking about their sales experience, right? And the bot goes and finds it. So we have to teach our people how to use that. It's not our own created, I would say, bot, but it's the, again, comes back to like the training on how to talk to these chat bots, and also understanding like maybe they missed something, right? Like you're asking it a question, but maybe the bot found something completely different. And we found that before too, where it's not accurate. So we have to go back and check. But I think it's also just training on, not just how to ask, but sometimes these tools aren't controlled by us. So it's partnering with that company to also say, hey, how does this really work? What are the guardrails on this tool? And not just assume that it works the same as some of the tools that the company provides, like ChatGPT and things like that.
So building on that, you said something I wanted to go back to, Monica. You talked about the segregation of duties. And in this talk, I was talking about how does the HR leader design. Unpack a little bit of that segregation of duty. And the reason why I'm asking, because when you say how do HR leaders design internal processes, we can all be honest that there's still the belief that HR only does recruitment. They only do those HR functions. But what we're saying now is it is a collaborative effort. Spend a little time on that segregation of duty, because you really pricked something in my HR heart about that. And I was really glad to hear you about it. Talk a little bit
for
about
example,
that.
segregation of duty is you don't want someone who could post a rec go ahead and process a paycheck for that individual, right? Or even hire that individual. So imagine one person have that authority to do it all. Where are the guardrails for that process? You could post, you could hire, you could put them on payroll, get the paycheck out, right? So the segregation of duties is at each step, the person who could post might not be able to, is not allowed to hire that individual into the institution. So there should be checks and balances at every step. And again, it's not new. This is not magic. It's done through a lot of financial services regulations, Sarbanes-Oxley, but those are all lessons learned from previous industry failures. But in a higher education setting, it's even much more scrutinized. Being a state agency, we're accountable for taxpayers' money, right? We're spending taxpayers' money. So segregation of duty is big. And another thing is from payroll and finance and HR. HR might be responsible for compensation aspect. For example, there's a setting up that starting salary, but payroll is responsible for paying that salary out. So we don't want same group setting up the starting salary as well as paying that salary out. So it's checks and having checks and balances is what segregation of duties is all about. And also sometimes the reporting structures, the payroll might report into finance, might not report into HR. It depends on the organization.
Good, thank you. as we're kind of closing this out, what is, and I guess I can start with you, Monica.
Mhm.
What one operational change you've made or you're planning to make that will significantly improve transparency and trust in how HR and maybe those cross-functional functions, but really HR uses AI or automation in decision making? I love this question.
I do too. And I know it sounds pretty simple, but I
Right.
think the more simple you can make something that's seemingly so complicated, the better. I mean, one thing that we did that was the first step that we even made in any of this process as we implemented some of the AI tools was just a clear employee facing guideline policy. And we didn't even call it a policy, we called it a guideline. And really communicated that to the organization, put that into everyone's onboarding packet so they could read it when they first started. So they come in and they know exactly what they can do, exactly what they have available to them. We used to get questions all the time. Hey, I use this, bot creator at my last company. Can I use it here? Well, that policy addresses like what we have. If you want to talk to our, tech team and HR team about new things, how to do that. So people know coming in the expectations and also understand what we are, what we are working with in a transparent way. So it's not a secret. We want people to know what we want to use and how we want to use it and where we're using it so that we can be really transparent with them and clear so that we're utilizing it to enhance and not replace, like we talked about earlier. I think there's also another piece in this that we've taught a lot of our teams about, which is bias mitigation. Obviously you're asking the bot questions and the bot is answering you, but there's also this piece about just ensuring that you can, identify and reduce bias in some of the algorithms because it's learning and you just, again, you need the human oversight. So that's a big piece as well.
Great, Monica. I love that you're introducing it as soon as they get in the organization. So there's no question, right? Part of the new onboarding process. That's really impactful. Naga, what is one operational change you've made? Are you planning?
So what we are planning to make is I'm introducing this, especially with embedded AI, we have to be a little more cautious. We're starting to ask our vendors to give us that explainability tracing. What that means is how are they designing, what is their language model, and providing the more transparent information about the decision making in those tools. But at the same time, and they're going to give us hundreds of pages of documents about this information. It's not easy to digest and understand. So we are working on partnering with IT to simplify that, and so that there is that way we are also evolving from IT governance and IT security perspective as part of selection processes. How could we have much more simplified language in these documents, and maybe one group to review these documents before we select the vendor? So at this time, again, it's experimentation. We are not experts. No one is an expert out there, but this explainability is big. We need to get a handle on reviewing those documents and understanding them. That's the key for the future.
All right. Wow. My head is spinning. This is just great information. Let's jump into some of the questions from the audience, and we'll have some time at the end for you to make closing comments about, what's the one takeaway you'd like to leave for our participants. So here's a question for both of you, whoever would like to start. Which RPA platforms are you utilizing the most, and how have you demonstratively incorporated unintended bots within the organization?
Let me take that question. Major academic healthcare, we are using multiple tools in the RPA space. We're using Blue Prism, UiPath, and Power Automate. However, we have a strong governance in place. We have governance groups across the university, and we make sure that whenever there is a solution that's being designed, it's going through this committee to review and deployed into production. We don't want to standardize because being the nature of decentralized nature, standardization doesn't work well within our university setting. So that's the process. That's the thing. And unintended nature of bots, I think that's inevitable. That's why we are insisting on awareness and normalizing AI is the approach we're taking. But at the same time, our IT security is huge. We make sure even our laptops are monitored, that even the last end mile is monitored, that we're not deploying something on our own, even on the desktop.
Monica, I know you've talked a lot about bots and
Yeah. Well, actually, like I said, we've been more using the bots that are embedded in our tools that we already have. We haven't done any individual deployment of the RPA platforms ourselves, minus just, the general ChatGPT. But I would say probably not in that way. We haven't done unattended bots for sure. Like that's not something that we've independently deployed, but like I said, people have access to the overlays on the different tools that we've got. So.
God, thank you. Here's another question from our audience. AI is everywhere you turn these days. For HR department, where do you start in the AI search process? It's a great question. Would recruiting be the quote best unquote place to implement and show C-suite the benefits of AI or how beneficial AI can be? Right.
I can take that one.
Yeah.
So my best advice is start with the most painful processes that you have. I mean, that's really what we did. One of the most manual and painful processes we had happened to be recruiting. It was a lot of steps, a lot of different people touching the process, different scorecards that we had to fill out. So we just took the thing that was taking people the most time, that wasn't a value add, a lot of manual work, a lot of typing, a lot of things that they were spending their time on. And that's where we started, because we were then able to say, hey, it saved us this much time. We were able to do, we were able to take 10 recs per recruiter instead of 7. We were able to fill roles, 30 days faster. It was just easier for us to measure because that was the most painful part of our process. I would say recruiting probably is the most forward thinking area because there's a lot of solutions for that. I don't want to call it low hanging fruit, but it is. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there that can help with that because it's a hot area, especially with all of the manual pieces, scheduling, for example, scorecard filling out. There's a lot of areas where you're waiting on another person to do something before you can move to the next step. That's a prime example of where AI could be a huge help. So I would say that's probably a good place to start exploring. But really, if you're looking at step 1, look at what's taking up the most time from an admin perspective or a pain point perspective and start there.
Good. I love your statement, low-hanging fruit, also known as priorities within reach, right? Mm-hmm. Priorities within reach. Naga, you want to jump? That's a great question. You want to build on that?
Yes, I'll add recruiting is big. I'll also add learning. Individual, especially if we have any LMS systems or learning content systems, don't hesitate to turn on those capabilities within the product because LinkedIn Learning has great learning coach AI. It's really helping people. And also a lot of places, your learning teams might be stretched too thin to coach people. LinkedIn Learning AI coaches working perfectly. It's a great tool to have those type of coaches where employees will not hesitate to ask questions and it can help them select that right course or like learning material. So learning is another area I would focus on.
Okay, so your biggest pain point and your learning. Good question. Well, as we're going to close this out, I want to provide each one of you some time to just give one takeaway, if you were on the other side, what's the one thing that you have learned in this space that you'd like our audience to take away, not be afraid of, etc. I'll start with you, Monica. Just kind of close out you take a couple minutes and just share what's the one takeaway.
Yeah. So I would say, one, don't be scared of trying AI. There's a lot of great tools out there that can help you, and it's really hard to mess it up, right? Like, it's really hard to try something and mess it up. Also, don't feel bad if you're like, I don't know what an RPA platform is. There's not, depending on your company and what you're doing and where you are in your journey, like, there's going to be plenty of time to get involved in some of this. I would say, if you want to learn more, there's a ton of classes on LinkedIn. There's a ton of free classes Microsoft has out there right now that you could actually just go and Google and take them. That's what I did, because I really didn't know anything beforehand, and realized how much there is to know. And that was a good starting point for me to be able to say, hey, team, look at these 10 free classes that like Microsoft has right now. Why don't you go and listen to them? And then that sparked, oh my gosh, we're spending 10 hours a week on scorecard filling out. Like, wouldn't it be great if the AI could fill it out for us and we just check it? And that saves us 10 hours a week. And then that turned into, is there a system out there that does that? Which turned into, yes, there is, and turned into, let's get it. So I just think being curious yourself and just trying to find those resources, and not being afraid to start somewhere, that's probably my best advice.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to turn that over to you, and then we have a couple more questions in the chat, but I'd like you to do your takeaway, and then we'll cover the questions in the chat.
Sure. Again, my advice to HR leader is going bold on upskilling. What that means is normalizing that training, normalizing that AI. Like, that's awesome, Monica. It's you're helping your team to take courses, but I think at a larger organizations, it's better to be much more formalized training to be put in place, so that it's everyone is getting that awareness, and that's very important. Especially, I think it's going to be significantly disruptive in the next few years with a lot of agentic AI creeping in. So nothing beats the awareness and upskilling your employees. So that's near and dear to my heart.
Now, you spoke to my heart saying go bold on upskilling, right? That's that disruptor mentality. I love this. So a couple more questions for the both of you. The first one is, how can we best evaluate and select AI tools? We talked a little bit about that. And which HR functions make the most sense? That's the first one. I could give you both of them, and then we can just kind of run. And then the second one is, how can organizations balance AI-driven insights with employee privacy rights to foster trust and avoid overreach? So the first one is evaluate, how do you evaluate the best to select an AI tool? What functions make most sense? And then the other one is, how can organizations balance AI-driven insights with employee rights to ensure trust and avoid overreach?
Sure. Let me take the first question, selection of AI tool. In my opinion, the selection of AI tools should be aligned with the business need. So your purpose should be defined first. For example, let's say if it's recruiting, or it could be compensation. Recruiting is much more easier to break it down, for example, because you have a candidate experience piece. Because your purpose is a lot different there. You might need an AI tool to help candidates to apply for the right job. And from institution perspective, we want more applicants click that apply button. So we want AI tool to nudge our applicants to help and be available for applicants and presenting them with appropriate job requisitions so that they could press that apply button quickly so that they continue the process. When it comes to administration aspects, we want an AI tool to help negotiate the interview schedule between hiring team and the candidate. So that's a productivity gain. And we did deploy an AI tool for that as well. And at the end, like Monica has explained, interview questions, right? Getting to that personalized interview questions is a dream for hiring team, because a lot of time they don't have time to look at the resume and say, hey, we need to get to structured interview, but usually you end up with structured interview of same question, asking the same questions everyone, which might not fit well in the interview for the interview experience. So it depends on the purpose. So make sure you're selecting the right tool based on the purpose and not based on some technology requirement.
That's a great response. And then Monica, thank you, Naga. Monica, how can you balance?
Yeah, so I think again, it comes back to the clear, transparent expectations. People knowing, what you're using it for and where the data is going, so that they understand, and being able to do that from the day one. We have an orientation program that we run at Pareto, where we bring our new hires into our headquarters location for 3 days, and we spend a bulk of time, or at least an hour of time, with our head of IT talking about this. So people know they get to ask questions. They get to start this before they start their journey with us and understand, what we're doing with the information, how we see, what's our philosophy. And there's an open forum. So it just really helps with that trust building and that understanding of where everything is going. So I'd say build it in upfront. It's probably a big win for us that we've been able to do that.
Okay. Well, we are done. I want to tell the both of you, thank you so very much for this impactful and powerful conversation about AI. It was enlightening. Again, as somebody who's practiced HR for over 35 years, I never thought that we'd be in this place, meaning just let me not say that. The utilization of technology in the workplace, especially around HR operations, just is so fascinating and so exciting. And to have both of you sitting at the helm in your organizations driving this initiative forward makes me very, very proud as an HR, practitioner, leader, and someone who's so passionate about this game. So Naga and Monica, it's been a great pleasure sharing this time with you. And I'm going to turn this back over to Nick. Thank you so very much for the both of you and for our audience.
Thanks,
Yes,
Stacey.
thank you all. Yeah, this was an awesome panel discussion, and thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled Staying Ahead of Global Compensation Compliance with AI. Please click on the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.